Hi everyone, thank you for joining me yet again for another installment of the 4-group video cheat sheet. This is installment 8. In this installment, we're going to cover the sermon, specifically the third sermon in the 3-week series on politics. The sermon is entitled Koinonia Sunday, and that sermon will be preached on November the 8th, or it was preached on November the 8th, depending on when you watch this. And we'll also talk about the book that some of you are going through, chapter 8 of Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, and that chapter is called Go the Next Step to Develop a Rule of Life. As always, it's my objective to give you a talking point or two to discuss with the other members of your 4-group, and we'll first begin with the sermon, Koinonia Sunday. That's the title of the sermon, Koinonia Sunday. And the scripture passage that it focuses on is Romans 12, 19 to 20. Romans 12, 19 to 20. So you're going to want to read that before getting together. But let me tell you the highlight. The highlight of that section of scripture, it's only a couple verses, is if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink, for by doing so you will heap burning coals on his head. And then Paul concludes with, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So, Koinonia Sunday, yes, this Sunday coincides with the opening of our 4th campus in the Nashville area, and that campus is called Koinonia. Now, you may know this, but the word koinonia is a Greek word which means fellowship, sharing in common, or communion. Now, most of the time we think about the word koinonia, we think about it as a person-to-person transaction. Fellowship is generally thought of as a person-to-person transaction, but we need to think about it in a biblical context. Because listen, it's one thing if we say the Bible tells us to fellowship, so let's fellowship. But the Bible asks us to think about it deeper than that. In the book of 1 John, chapter 1, the apostle tells us in verse 7, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. We have koinonia with one another. In other words, our unity with one another is dependent and enabled because of our union with Christ. Our unity with one another is dependent and enabled because of our union with Christ. So here's what we need to understand and think about. The reason you and I can and must live in such a way that enables us to love our enemies and overcome evil with good is because he did so first with us. The Father has one objective in you, and that's to make you more like his Son. Christ loved his enemies. Yes, before we were saved, we would have been numbered among his enemies. We were his enemies because we were dead set against who he was and what he stood for. Now, we all have the Spirit of Christ in us, and that enables us to walk in his footsteps. That's how we are now that we're saved. So the apostle is basically telling us, do like Christ did. Love your enemies. That's the opposite of what you'll hear from anywhere else. But he's telling us, do like Christ did. Love your enemies. And in so doing, you will overcome evil with good. Loving your enemy is the key. Loving your enemy is the key to overcoming evil with good. So what's your talking point? Simply ask yourselves how you can apply this idea to the political season we're in. We're in a series on politics. Let's apply this idea toward this season of politics. Ask yourselves one question, one simple question. Ready? What are some practical ways to turn evil into good this political season? How can we, in the aftermath of an election, actively turn evil into good? How do we do that? Think on that. From a political perspective, how do we turn evil into good? Whatever the result of the election is, by the time when I'm recording this, I don't know the result of the election. I hope by the time you're watching this, maybe we do know. Who knows? But again, think about how you can actively turn evil into good in the aftermath of this political season. And how can we apply it to the next one, for that matter? They come every couple of years. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about emotionally healthy spirituality. In this chapter, which is entitled Go the Next Step to Develop a Rule of Life, we're finally getting into the nuts and bolts of how we become emotionally healthy in our spirituality. And it should be almost no surprise to you that his answer, which I'll state somewhat succinctly, is order your entire life in such a way that the love of Christ comes before all else. Order your life in such a way that the love of Christ comes before all else. There you go. That's all you need to do. Order your life around Christ, and you'll be emotionally healthy too. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Okay, hang on. I'm just kidding. I'm not wrapping up yet, but it really does seem like an easy solution. Just order your life around Christ. That's it. It's an easy answer, but actually getting to the place where you do that, that's the hard part, as you might have guessed. And again, it should come as no surprise that some of the answers he gives probably sound a lot like what you've heard before. Scripture, studying the Word, observing the Sabbath, service and mission, community. In fact, if you want me to once again state it more succinctly, I will. Believe it or not, what he seems to be steering you towards is practicing the habits of worship, connect, and serve. I had to say it at least once in the series. Now, I know the last thing that some of you want is to receive yet another list of things to do. Here's our answer: do this, then do that, do this, and boom, everything's fixed. But if you're reading this, if you're reading these things like a to-do list, you're reading them wrong. What the author is trying to get you to do is establish some healthy habits. And in creating those healthy habits, something profound happens. It's not just the doing of the things, but it's the why behind doing those things and the result that doing those things achieves. As an example I always like to use is making my children apologize to one another. Whenever I make my kids apologize to each other, it's very half-hearted, as you might guess. They don't mean it, okay? So why do I make them do it? Is there any good in making your kids apologize to one another when they clearly don't mean it? Yes. Because what I'm more concerned about them apologizing in the moment is establishing the pattern, the habit of apologizing to each other. I want it to become an easy thing for them to do. Why? Because we're told to do it? No. I want them to experience the benefit of what only comes by way of a relationship restored through an apology. Okay? When you apologize, you're no longer out of fellowship with your brother, and I want them to see through the process of apologizing. So again, it's not just the moment, but it's the process. When they go through that process, it's better. It's more joyful. It's more life-giving than living out of fellowship with your brother. They may not experience it in the moment because, again, it's a long play. So the author is basically telling us to trust the process. Get into those habits. Center your life around these types of things and see the long-term effect of them. All right? Try it out. So your talking points. Take a look at the personal rule of life list that he gives. He breaks it into 12 different practices: scripture, silence and solitude, daily office, study, etc. Take a look at those 12 practices. He lists them out and puts them in bullet points. And each of you identify two. Each of you identify two of the 12. Maybe identify two things from that list that you could stand to develop more, and state why you picked those two. And again, even if you want to take it more simple than that, if 12 is too many, just focus on the main headings: prayer, rest, work, and relationships. Prayer, rest, work, and relationships. Which of those four things could stand to receive some more attention or some maintenance, if you will? Prayer, rest, work, or relationships. Go with that. Okay? Hopefully that helps you and gets you going in the right direction. Once again, thank you for joining me. Keep going. Stick with it. Keep getting to know each other. Continue investing in one another. We really need this. We really do. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Godspeed.